Earth, the home to over 7 billion people and uncountable natural wonders. Our home is in danger from climate change caused by ourselves.
The science itself is clear. Climate change is already contributing to significant environmental changes, unprecedented droughts, floods, and hurricanes, to name a few.
Scientists had known since the 1800s that greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide trap heat, and that burning fossil fuels release those gases into the air. That wasn't news. But in the late 1950s, the National Weather Service began measuring the levels of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere. And what they found, year after year, is that the levels of carbon pollution in our atmosphere have increased dramatically.
Now, what is this danger?
Well, scientists more than 100 years ago determined that greenhouse gases, certain gases, if they're in the atmosphere, will reflect heat back to the planet and trap it sort of like a blanket around the planet. And that has always been the case, and it's a naturally occurring effect, but since the Industrial Revolution, humans have been putting a whole bunch more of these greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, CO2 and methane and other gases, because of industry. And a lot of it is from fossil fuel use. The bulk of it is from fossil fuel use through power, electricity, heat, transportation, driving cars, all those things contribute.
Considering the fact that most of our carbon pollution comes from cars and energy production, Democratic politicians, such as President Obama, believe that there should be a carbon tax.
Carbon tax is a tax on fossil fuels, coal, oil, and gas. The tax is imposed not at the consumer level, but at the mine or the wellhead or at the oil import station, and then the fossil fuel companies pass it down the supply chain so that at the end of the day your electricity will be somewhat more expensive if it's made from fossil fuels. It won't be more expensive if it's made from renewable fuels like solar and wind. But the point is to incentivize the transition that we desperately need from dirty energy that's destabilizing our climate to clean energy that will protect the planet.
A carbon tax would be an effective incentive for companies to leave less of a carbon footprint and increase their sustainable efforts. However, not everyone believes that the carbon tax is needed. Some people argue that climate change is a non-issue.
To support the idea that we need a carbon tax and so forth, feel like that we're going to have continued global warming and it's going to harm our environment. But yet, for the most part, the temperatures have been flat for the last 16 to 17 years.
First, yes, CO2 is increasing in the global atmosphere. But let's look at the last billion years of global climate change. I chose the most recent billion years. There is actually 3.5 more billion years of climate change before this. But we know pretty well that this is what has happened over the last billion. It's generally been warmer than it is today by many degrees Celsius. 22 degrees average global temperature has been the norm, but then there have been 4.5 ice ages during this period of time where temperature plummets on average down to 12 degrees, even 10 degrees Celsius global average. Today, the global average temperature is 14.5 degrees Celsius. We are in an ice age.
Even if skeptics are correct in saying climate change is, in fact, a non-issue, it does not change the fact that we have a limited amount of fossil fuels.
Well, renewable energy are sources that are not finite. So, perhaps it's best to look at it in contrast to non-renewable energy. So oil, natural gas, coal, those are things that eventually we're going to reach a limit of. Now, how far away that limit of our ability to use them is hard to know, but these are things that there's a set amount of them ultimately on the planet.
Considering fossil fuel sources will run out, we need to be prepared with sustainable, renewable energy sources before they do run out. We must act now. The question is, what can we do?
And a lot of these gases stay in the atmosphere for a really long time. So even if we all stop burning fossil fuels tomorrow, there would still be consequences of climate change consequences for a lot of years to come. But we still need to try to reduce our carbon as dramatically and quickly as we can.
It starts with us switching to electric or fuel-efficient vehicles and pushing local companies for more sustainable efforts. We must also encourage energy companies to use renewable energy, such as wind or solar, instead of finite fossil fuels. Every man, woman, and child must step up now to save our neighborhoods, lakes, forests, oceans, cities, and our planet.